Well, speaking of somebody who loves working for ESPN, who loves answering questions, literally, I know this for a fact, you guys. No one person on planet Earth has had to answer more questions from people that begin with how and end with my fantasy team than the pride of Nantucket, the champion of craft beer, Mel Kiper's stunt double, the one and the only Field Yates joins us right now. Field, it's a long time coming, my friend. Thank you so much.
It is. Let me tilt this down here for a second. We're drinking a little squared circle here. I felt like that was the only way to get ready for this big event. But thanks so much for having me on, guys. Cheers to you all.
Cheers to you. And you know what? Actually,
just one sip. Yep.
I say everyone knows the rules. Actually, I say this because we're just clowning around, Field.
Dang it.
It's good. It's good beer, man. We appreciate you. Appreciate you jumping on. We've been kicking off things, and I know the super chats are going to fill up now with people like, if I pay $51, Field will answer my question about my shitty fantasy team. 8,000 people watching live now. No pressure.
There we go.
So just, I know you're a Pats fan as well. You're a local native. The pride of Massaholia, like many of us here. What's your 10,000-foot take on what would be an optimal Patriots offseason going forward into free agency Monday, and then, of course, heading into a draft that lacks all the sex appeal of superstar wide receivers and quarterbacks of last year, but seems to be rife with a lot of those guys that'll plug the holes and really do the football things this Pats team desperately needs?
Yeah, I'm going to work backwards a little bit because I do think, and as we're having this conversation on March 7th, 8th, what is it? March 7th right now, there's a real chance that the Patriots land one of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at pick number 4. Leaving Indianapolis, I felt that way. And stuff could change with some quarterback movement this upcoming week. If you're rooting for the Patriots to land either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, then you should be rooting for things like Geno Smith getting traded to the Raiders. Sorry, Doug. And the Seahawks quickly pivoting and signing Sam Darnold, which sounds like there's at least a real chance that happens Monday technically, but for all we know, that deal could basically be done. You want things like that. You want teams that are picking well behind the Patriots to fill their quarterback void, because you want the Browns or the Giants to be devoid of options that would not satisfy or that would satisfy their quarterback quandaries that they currently have. I think the Titans are either taking Cam Ward or trading down to a team that will take Cam Ward at number 1 overall. My colleague, Adam Schefter, who knows more than really anybody, has been quite confident, and to the point that it's eye-opening how confident he was in declaring he believes the Browns are taking a quarterback number 2 overall. This was before the combine, and Schefter obviously knows a lot of things, but he is as buttoned up as it gets in terms of waiting until something is done before he reports it. So he wasn't flat out reporting the Browns are guaranteed to take a quarterback. But he basically said, if I were to predict one thing that will happen in the draft, it's the Browns taking a quarterback number 2 overall. So I know this is a long-winded way of getting to Travis Hunter, but I really believe he's the best player in the draft. And if the Patriots get him at number 4, well, we can go back and forth on whether he's better as a cornerback or a wide receiver. I think the idea when you draft a player is probably to explore a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. But I believe, and this is not to say he isn't a fantastic cornerback prospect, I believe he's got even more upside as a wide receiver. I think we're talking about legitimate all-pro ability. He's got this sort of Gumby nature to him, kind of like Jaden Daniels last year. If you see him, he's a wiry built player, but he withstands contact very, very well. He has got tremendous body armor for a guy who checked in, I think, 187 at the combine, which is lighter relative to some of these top-tier wide receivers. But the instincts, the ball skills, the speed, obviously, all those things to me give me a lot of confidence that this guy could end up being an all-pro wide receiver at some point. So I don't think there is a clear-cut, obvious, short and long-term answer for the Patriots in free agency at wide receiver. There are a couple names, obviously, Chris Godwin. Godwin, who I think is an amazing player, but he's coming off of a major ankle injury, right? And the reality is he's 27. So Travis Hunter just represents kind of this very unique opportunity for the Patriots if he falls to number 4. I think next week, though, for all I know, they could go, they could sign 20 free agents, but they obviously lead the NFL in cap space. This is not this incredibly rich free agency class, and that was only shortened by moves like the Bengals franchise tagging T. Higgins. And there's only 2 tags, but Trey Smith and T. Higgins were about as good as it gets as far as potential free agents, that this might be the year that if you're the Patriots, you just say, even if we have to overspend on players, I'm okay with 3 or 4 massive spends on guys who are true blue chip talents. I think all the names that have been discussed plenty regarding the Patriots, Godwin is one, and Milton Williams on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe if they feel like Josh Sweat's, a scheme fit, that would be one as well. I mean, there are a lot of guys that could help specifically along the offensive and defensive line. Aaron Banks from San Francisco, big physical guard, got a lot of experience. Like, there are a lot of guys that I think if you throw 8-figure per year contracts at them, can at least help get this roster a little bit closer to representative of a team that can, I don't know about push for that Commanders turnaround, but at least be a much friskier out than they were last year when too many games were lost, felt like too early in the game.
Definitely. And Field, thank you again for joining us. It was great to see you at the Combine as well. Always good to see Field Yates. I saw that you, obviously you've been diving into the draft. First of all, you laid out an ideal situation. I think Patriots fans watching this right now would be ecstatic about the idea of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter being there.
I feel pretty good about that.
Overall. Yeah. And that's, I mean, obviously that's fantastic news for
either
the Patriots, or it would be fantastic news. Is there one other guy, maybe like, let's say, top of the second round, that you look at in this draft as just being like, you know what, this looks like a Patriots fit. This looks like a Mike Vrabel type of guy. This looks like a type of guy that the front office would fall in love with.
What I'm going to do right now is I've been working on my top 100. I happen to have it available right here. So I'm going to look at players I have ranked somewhere in that range. All right, so a couple names to give you here. Josh Connerly, offensive tackle from Oregon, really good player, had a great season this past year. So if the Patriots didn't go offensive tackle at 4 or don't land one in free agency, and again, the options are pretty thin there, then Connerly, who it's not the sexiest tape. It's just really solid and dependable. Had a great game. Penn State, Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Oregon just basically said, we're going to throw every resource we have at Abdul Carter and kind of attack him from all angles, reminding me of some of the stuff the Patriots used to do against guys like Aaron Donald, just basically make him work for 60 minutes. Even if you lose some of those battles, you at least make him fight those battles. So it wasn't solely Josh Connerly who was responsible for Abdul Carter having no pressures, no sacks in that game, but it was a really good game for him in general. Something Nick Scorton from Texas A&M, a pass rusher who 2 seasons ago, so not last year, but the year prior, was at Purdue and led the Big Ten in sacks. And like Big Ten, I mean, that's Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, it was not what it is now when there's Oregon and UCLA and USC, et cetera. But the old Big Ten still has plenty of legit rushers that the fact that he led the conference in sacks as a true sophomore was telling. He's kind of got this shorter arm build. I know people, this is the time of year where everybody freaks out over small measurables one way or the other. Doug, Andrew, and I were sort of laughing and joking as we were sort of finishing off a beer in Indianapolis about Will Campbell and whether the measurements could get him the extra 1/8 of an inch because he had been reportedly checking in around 32 and
unbelievable.
7/8 of an inch.
It's
now he's 32 and 5/8.
It's not how big it is. It's how you use that.
But his measurables feel though like I looked at everything that he did at the Combine and everything that he did in college and what the size and everything. He's Zach Martin. Like he's almost Zach Martin to a T.
Which, by the way, if you get Zach Martin with the 4th pick, I feel like that's a pretty damn good way to go.
That's a great success, right?
I'd be pumped.
Exactly.
But I also say this about Will Campbell. It's so funny how it's like the only world in which a guy who's 6'6" and 319 pounds is considered tiny is left tackle world, right? Will's a big dude though, and like that guy. I mean, the tape is pretty damn good. Actually, incidentally enough, I thought the rusher that gave him the most fits this year was Nick Scorton, who is a short-armed pass rusher. So maybe the lengthy guys aren't as much of a concern as these guys that can kind of get underneath you. Kenneth Grant from Michigan, I sort of see him all over the board. I think he's more late 1, early 2 for me than he is mid-round 1. 3.5 sacks last season. Not like significant pass rushing upside, but a guy who can really clog a lot of space in the middle. He's 330 pounds every day of the week. He's an Indianapolis kid who ended up at Michigan, had a really good career for them. Him and Mason Graham against Ohio State. Like I was surprised the city of Columbus, let those guys out of the stadium. It was like just what they were doing to that offensive line for Ohio State, which was very, very good, was just simply unfair. look at some other names here. Jonas Avainea from Arizona is a guard who played right tackle, left tackle, everywhere. Anything along the offensive line intrigues me for the Patriots. I'm a huge Jack Besh fan. He's a wide receiver from TCU, a kid who a lot of people know, unfortunately, because he lost his brother during the terror attack in New Orleans on New Year's Eve.
Love him.
He started his career at LSU during a time in which there was Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. at the program. Jack Besh, as a true freshman tight end, led the team in receiving yards, like kind of a crazy thing to consider given all the talent that was also there in Baton Rouge. He ends up at TCU. He is a wide receiver every day of the week, 214 pounds, 6'1" at the combine. Had a good short shuttle, had a good 3-cone as well. Didn't run the 40. I think he's probably like 4.48 to 4.52 type guy, which might be a little bit scary to the Patriots right now. I was a huge Jalen Polk fan coming out of the draft, but obviously last year was a forgettable one for him. Still some confidence they can get that thing turned around, but obviously when you draft a receiver who's a bit speed deficient a year ago, you might not necessarily be as inclined to go down that path this year. If somehow, some way, Donovan Jackson from Ohio State sneaks into the top of round 2, and I'm completely convinced he won't, then I would sprint that card in. One of my favorite players in the entire class. He's, we talk about these guards, these offensive linemen. You want them to be like big, fast, physical, athletic guys, with athletic being a trait we talk about a lot. That being said, guys, these quarterbacks in today's NFL, it's so inconsistent. Like, they're not dropping to the same depth. It's not like when the Patriots had Tom Brady, and it was like you knew exactly where Tom's back foot was going to hit on every single play. So you kind of knew, like, here's what we're going to be doing, right? It's like, here's how we're going to have to set on this play. Now, it's a different world, man. These quarterbacks, it's one play, they're 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, dashing to the right, dashing to their left, right? With Drake being a big mobile quarterback, sometimes what you're looking for is less about the athletes. It's more about just the guys that can set a big, firm, flat pocket. Donovan Jackson, this guy's a brick wall. I call him the brick wall. The Great Wall of Columbus with how he played last year. He's a left guard who moved out to left tackle when they lost Josh Simmons. So I actually like that pick 38 for the Patriots. Yeah. I think there's some good talent there for sure.
Yeah, it's too bad it's going to Seattle for DK Metcalf, but we appreciate all the thoroughness that you had there, Phil.
Sorry. Wait,
no.
Has DK just been traded?
First of all, anytime we get together and drink beers, Field, it's an apology-free zone, number one. And number two, this is all this is the knowledge we all want, because as we were saying to Mike Reese a little while ago, like, it's so fun to talk Patriots again, finally, for the first time in a while. That anything we can learn about what this team needs, who's available, and what they can do is fun, because there was so much negativity first following the release of Brady, then with the animosity with Mac versus Belichick, and then Kraft and Mayo, that now things have sorted themselves out again. Like, the field is level, and it's time for the Patriots to go back in a very aggressive, forceful direction with Mike Vrabel. And I think, like I mentioned before, they're going to build a team that's representative of like that strong blue collar, sausages and Aussie on the boom box at the tailgate. Like, that's where we're going back to again, which is great. Yeah. And so when I hear about good linebackers, possession receiver, I think Jack Besh has Patriot written all over him. So does Luther Burden, and so does Xavier Restrepo. If I get one more tweet, and I have 1/19 of your followers, if I get one more tweet that says like, Xavier Restrepo is a Miami tatted up version of Edelman, I'm going to quit all social media. It's unbelievable. But that's what we want. That's where we need to go again, Callahan.
Yeah, I'm with you. But before, because Paul has been waiting forever, and we finally have the person to ask.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So fantasy, no, he asked us at 8. This was Paul's mistake, not yours, Fields. We've been waiting to ask you this question, though. He says he stinks at fantasy. Go generic with this.
You can fix that.
Or specific sleeper, year 2 leap guys, someone that you could just give Paul, who needs all the help apparently. And thank you very much, Paul, in all seriousness, for donating. Just a little boost for him looking ahead to next August, maybe early September when he's drafting.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to thread some needles, right? Because we have the next 7 days, which is basically the first wave or wave and a half of free agency that's going to dictate so much, right? So there's a part of me that's like, if the Bills don't get a deal done with James Cook, what happens there, right? Or, and does that mean that Ray Davis all of a sudden becomes a starter because James Cook either holds out or is traded or something? And then I'm realizing to myself, like, we're so far away from that stuff actually happening. All right, a couple of things here. So Andre Yosivas, that would be, I mean, he's a name that we learned a little bit about last year. He played a decent amount for Cincinnati, but I do think if they can't get a long-term deal done with T. Higgins, then we're going to be staring at the same situation we did last year, which is every tight hamstring for T. Higgins might be a couple weeks, right, as opposed to a couple days. It just, you have to protect yourself. That would be a name that comes to mind for me. Josh Downs is a good player that, I mean, actually both receivers in Indianapolis that I like the most, Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs, are both good names because if they go out and they sign a quarterback that is just a more natural pocket passer than Anthony Richardson, it looks a whole lot better. And Downs actually was fine last year with Richardson, but he was much better with Joe Flacco. I think probably the best answer, though, on some of these breakouts is which of the first round receivers from last year, high pedigree receiver / running backs, and it obviously wasn't a great running back class last year, are going to end up sort of making that year two leap. Belichick used to just famously hammer that, right? Like these guys who make the big year one to year two leap. And the Patriots seem to always get that with running backs, right? Shane Vereen, Stephen Ridley. I'm sure there are others that I've forgotten along the way, but
Danny Woodhead, Kevin Falk, all those guys.
Yeah.
James White for sure.
It all seemed to happen. And then probably like places where there is a quarterback that we know is already in place, like Atlanta. I guess Drake London and Darnell Mooney were both fine this past season. But so I feel like I almost owe Paul more come like July.
There we go.
But that's a start.
We'll do this again in July. Yeah.
Hey, Paul, is there a way to keep Paul on speed dial in some way that I can like revisit him? Because I'll have a much better answer.
I do want to let everybody know. We did one of these last spring. Field was kind enough to donate a prize at our live auction at Vitamin C Brewing that we actually never gave away because we ran short on time. He was willing to donate for a certain amount of money. If someone were to donate, 4 figures, that he was going to do a 30-minute quick chat with people's fantasy teams. I'm not promising that now by any stretch, Field. That never happened, but perhaps maybe we can do that sometime again soon, meet up, talk online, and feel we can auction off something great because there's a lot of fantasy to talk, but that's after the draft. That's after the draft happens.
Sure.
Let's see. I know what I wanted to ask you, and I need to bring in before we let you go, Field, and we keep things moving here. I got to bring in our guy.
Is there somebody coming behind me or no?
Well, there is. Actually, live from the set of season 3 of Severance.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel underdressed. Hurley, looking sharp.
I dress like this every Friday night. You guys don't?
Oh, guilty on that one.
So Field is at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Michael's on the set of Severance. I'm in my dad's basement right now. Michael, I wanted to welcome you in here while we have Field as well, because I've been dying to ask Field this question. This is one of my favorite things to swap texts with amongst friends about fantasy football. What has been your favorite fantasy football punishment that you have ever seen somebody have to serve? Because if I may, this week I was sent one. This guy had to dress up like Hurley. He had to put on a suit. He had to go to a Chili's. And he had to have dinner with a blow-up doll.
Oh, man. Oh, God.
And whatever Field says here.
On my Instagram, I swear to God, I can't watch it all the way through because he has to go through the whole dinner. And he has to walk it out arm in arm, and people are just staring the whole time like, you got to be shitting me, guy.
That is good. That is good.
It's an excellent one. So,
and whatever Field says here, Michael has already agreed to do. So he's gonna do it within the next week. So
well, I want to get back into fantasy just to lose. When I see the guys at like Waffle House for 24 hours, or like the McDonald's eat everything on the menu challenge, I'm kind of like, I could get into this. I think this is my calling.
Can we also acknowledge that Fitzy's worst punishment he's ever seen is not like, oh, my friend did this or heard this. My man took a blow-up sex doll to a Chili's and was just testing it out on the rest of us.
Callahan,
okay,
it's gastrically difficult to try to eat your way out of a Waffle House or take 7 cross-country flights. Yeah. But just the 30 minutes of everyone looking at you going like, what is that guy doing? Like, that's cringe. It is pretty cringe.
You survived, man. I don't think your wife's in the 8,500, 8,600 people we have here. Props to you. It's okay.
All right, so Field, what's the best? I know you're a good point, Callan. All right,
yeah,
so what's your favorite
I'll give you guys 2, and it's the same league, and it was 1 year to the next. So I play in a league, and I'm actually glad to tell this forum because I'd imagine a lot of New Englanders here that are amongst those 8,600 people. So I play in a league. There's 12 of us, and I think 9 of them are currently working at Cisco Brewery on Nantucket. I'm the only guy who's not a year-rounder on Nantucket right now. But, go there during the summer, and some of my best friends in the world are all there. So they allowed me an exemption a few years back into this league. And the last place finisher a couple of years ago, the punishment was, if you finished in last place, you had to start at Sankaty Lighthouse. For those familiar with the geography of Nantucket, that's like the southeast corner of the island. You had to run 8.4 miles to a bar, Chicken Box. And the rest of us were at the bar with that person's credit card. And the tab ran from the minute he left until the minute he arrived. So we're playing in this league. These guys have done pretty well for themselves. But, of course, the youngest guy in the league who had a monster season this year, like he made up for it and then some. He had he finished second or third this year. So he was it's not like he's a bad fantasy player. He's got unlucky. But like this young kid who's like fresh out of college loses in his first year in the league. And it's like, God damn it. Like this poor kid who's, probably making the least amount of money at everybody loses. So we ended up cutting the number off a little early. But the only silver lining of losing, and by the way, he ran it in like an hour 25. Like he went basically like 10-minute miles flat. And we had an air tag on him to make sure that he wasn't like all of a sudden like no one had like left a bike for him somewhere. Next thing you know, he went 4 miles in 15 minutes or something. So we were tracking him hard, but he got to choose the punishment for the upcoming year. And the upcoming year, so this year's punishment was you had to stop and drink a beer at every Cisco location and make it back to Nantucket in the same day. Like the day after the season was over, they announced they're shutting down the Portsmouth, New Hampshire location. So I think the guy who lost is going to have to go from like Seaport to New London to the Cape to Nantucket, which honestly, I don't know,
not easy.
Yeah. But I'm sort of saying, like, as a dad, I kind of wouldn't mind a day where I get to just go 4 different bars and drink a beer.
Are you kidding me, Field? Is it father of 2 like you are as well? Like I would give my left leg to be able to just spend a day on a boat and a ferry and whatever else and like bury Cisco's. By the way, side note, I feel like you and Randy Scott, who's just a tremendous human being, need to start a side pod because I know you need another podcast, Field. Yeah. And it's just called Fantasy Punishments. And every week you just discuss these.
Can I tell you guys one thing? I know I'll make it quick because I'm sure this isn't the spirit of this great event. I'm so happy that Randy Scott is getting the recognition for how talented he is and how incredible of a human he is. I thought forever, he says all the time, he's the most underrated person at ESPN. Underrated no longer. The man is the face of not just ESPN, but Disney Plus now. Are you kidding me? How cool is that? And of course, a great Nesson alum, as we all know.
I got to step in. This
another
is
good one. It's
already too pro Randy for me. I might have to bail. This is disgusting. Like, just I can't stand for this. Just too much Randy.
As somebody who was eliminated halfway through the first season of Dream Job, I'm glad that is the handsome face of ESPN and not this broken down guy Smiley right here. Okay.
And Field, before you go, suggestion for that league for next year's punishment, maybe like change your Instagram location to Martha's Vineyard for a year. That would be a decent enough punishment for.
Oh man, those guys. Right? Those guys would not stand for it. It is funny how it is. I mean, it's like that's like turf wars right there, right? Like when I have people ask me who have never been to the New England area, like I'm thinking about visiting one of the islands. Which one should I go to? They're like, I know you go to Nantucket. Does that mean you hate the Vineyard? And I'm like, here's the deal. Like the Vineyard's one of the most incredible places you could ever visit in your entire life. My mom lives there. I happen to have a place to stay. I'm here to tell you, hotels and rentals ain't cheap on either island. So I prefer the place where I can go and not spend my life savings for 4 nights. But Vineyard is a lovely place as well. It just doesn't, it's a little bit different for me, but who am I to judge?
And here I am just with my little 2-bedroom sea shanty in Dennisport, just like one day.
Hey, for the next 48 days, I think there's one thing that every Patriots fan needs to do. And I said this last year prior to the draft. And I think it was always going to land here, but there were some murmurs right where they go a different direction. It was take Drake May 3. This year, you got it before you go to bed tonight. Just whisper it into the air. Travis Hunter at 4. Travis Hunter at 4. Travis Hunter at 4. Just will it into existence.
Love it.
Yeah.
You guys already follow him at Field Yates, obviously for his Patriots Intel, the draft coverage, and the fantasy stuff. He does everything and then some. Maybe you'll run into him in Nantucket, or maybe on a ferry between Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard if he's serving a fantasy punishment or more. Maybe one day, if we're lucky enough, we'll get him to join us at the Plymouth or Weymouth location of Vitamin C for a pod, a hang, and a fundraiser. But Field, we can't thank you enough for over a half hour of your time on a Friday night. You got 2 kids, some chillaxation time you're entitled to. So from the bottom of Doug's, Andrew's, Mike, whatever resembles Michael's and mine, beating hearts, thank you so much for your time, buddy.
Yeah, my robust social life on a Friday night. You guys ask, am I free? I mean, come on. Is that a rhetorical question? Of course I'm free.
Hey, man, it was great. It was great chatting with you. Thanks so much. We'll do it again soon. You be well, okay?
Thanks, Field.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Good to see you all.